everybody and everyone back in the back. It's time to move forward and take a seat. My name is Gary Blakely. I'll be your MC today. I am pleased to welcome those here in our community center and those joining us on Facebook Live to Kansas City Oasis. Since 2014, Oasis has been the premier secular alternative to faith-based communities. We welcome all, regardless of beliefs or non-belief, race, gender, sexual orientation, identity, or any other trait. We feel the human experience is better when it is shared, and we are so pleased that you have chosen to share it with us this morning. So welcome. All right. Next slide. All right, and here's our beautiful logo. Yeah. And our 5 core values, we gather around 5 core values, that people are more important than beliefs, reality is known through reason, human hands solve human problems, meaning comes from making a difference, and be accepting and be accepted. Today's program, our featured speaker is Lewis Diuguid. The title is The Assault That Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Efforts Face in Government, Corporate, Education, Faith, and Community Circles, and Where That Could Lead. Our community moment is by Julie Manning, who manages our community moments also. We also have musicians, as usual. They have a duo, and they call themselves Cucharada. Did I get that right? Okay. Anyway, I think that brings us to the music. It's time. Come entertain us. Oh, and I should have said, Sean will be playing guitar, and Guy will be playing the flute. Welcome to Oasis.
We had another one.
Three? Oh, sure.
Well, that was just the middle part where the crowd is left assuming that we're done with the tune, and we persisted on.
And the MC is left wondering.
I really need to practice my page flipping is the problem with that, the crowd's like, okay, I think it's over. Thanks for having us today. This is Guy Montes on flute. My name is Sean. We are Cucharada, is the phonetic in parentheses thing. It was very nice. Most people have to be like, yeah, it's not, cucaracha, but I've been called worse. And happy Mother's Day. This is a day, of course, in which so many women, all they want is just to get away from their children. You see a lot of men with strollers today and with biliard looks, looking at their watches and phones, thinking, how long do I have to do this? And we played Argentine tango music, and so that first song we heard is we're playing the second and third movements of a piece from Astor Piazzolla, who's sort of a famous, impressive composer for a lot of people that get into it in the United States and universities and such. That's kind of where they start, and they work backwards from there as sort of the Duke Ellington of Argentina. And the suite is called Histoire du Tango. The idea is that he's kind of mapping out the history of the evolution of the music, and we just heard 1930 Cafe, and we're going to move on to Nightclub, 1960. And if you like, we also recorded an EP that I brought today, and that is it for the sales portion of today's show.
Kind of reminds me when I was in elementary school and they took us to the symphony and they said, watch the conductor when he puts his hands down, then it's over. So, yeah. Made the same mistake there. All right. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. No birthdays this week. Strangely, last time I did this MC job, there were no birthdays that week, so I brought in some celebrity birthdays. So guess what? I've got them again. The 12th. Got any skateboarders here? Tony Hawk. His birthday is the 12th. And George Carlin, and Katharine Hepburn. The 13th, Stevie Wonder and Stephen Colbert. 14th is Mark Zuckerberg and Kate Blanchett. There were no, on the thing I looked at online, I didn't recognize any of the people for the 15th, so I guess it's a sign of how old I am or something like that. But anyway, 16th is Janet Jackson and Danny Trejo, the actor. 17th is Enya, you know, the Orinoco Flow. You've heard of that one. So, and then the last 18 was Tina Fey and George Strait. All right. So happy birthday. Anybody, did we miss anybody? Anybody out there with a birthday this week? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. That will bring us to the movie and afternoon. Please join us for an ice cream social and movie afternoon this coming Saturday. Oasis will serve a small variety of ice cream and toppings, as well as microwave popcorn. And we'll watch the movie Wonder. It's a family-friendly event. All are welcome to attend. And please, we do need you to RSVP so we get an idea about how much ice cream and stuff. But RSVP with the number of friends and family you plan to bring so we can plan for the ice cream and popcorn supplies. So, but that's, Saturday from 12 to 3. Thursday night dance classes. Will and Julie will be tripping the lights fantastic. Is that what they say for that? Yeah. We're going to give us dance lessons for people that maybe have 2 left feet. You don't have to have a partner or a dance experience. Just come and have some fun. And that's going to be on Thursday evening. Yeah, Thursday evening, I guess once a month or every week? Every week. Okay, wow, cool. 6:30 to 7:30, so sounds like a lot of fun. And actually, as you know, there'll be different kinds of dances depending on that schedule there. Salsa and East Coast swing and bachata. Is that bachata? Okay. Anyway, beginner classes, and it's $12 a head. Again, no partner needed, so come on out for that. Memorial Weekend, there's going to be a potluck picnic instead of our usual Sunday meeting, we will have a potluck picnic at Mockin Park in North Kansas City. We've been there before if you've done this, been with us a while. It's going to be at Shelter House 1, and we hope you can make it. Rummage sale. Do you have any stuff you'd like to get rid of that might be of value? Please join us for a rummage sale. It's going to be June the 6th, 7th, and 8th, and I think we're timing this with this local community. Other people will be having garage sales, so it should be pretty well trafficked. And so bring things you'd like to donate, things that are in good condition. This is, we're not just getting rid of stuff you'd likely throw away otherwise, but no clothes or books. We don't want that, but summer clothes can be donated to Micah, and we'll be prepared to take those if you want to do that. All right, but again, now we've got a book club, inaugural book club meeting. It's on the 30th, and start reading now and join the Oasis Book Club June the 30th. Our current book is I'm Glad My Mom Died, which I haven't heard of that book, but it says, how appropriate for today. The book is a heartbreaking but also hilarious memoir, so there must be something to that, by Jeanette McCurdy, about her struggles as a former child actor and how she retook control of her life. So again, that's going to be the kickoff for the book club. So they've already made it interesting by having something that's both heartbreaking and hilarious. So, all right, that brings us to Micah Ministries. You see all those wonderful people there. We serve meals, hundreds of people, a meal on Monday evenings from 5:15 to 7:15. They'll help anyone regardless of race, gender, religion, or non-religious affiliation, sex, sexual orientation, or any other trait. Come join us in helping our less fortunate neighbors. Sign up on Micah Ministries' Facebook page. And that brings us to our community moment, and Julie Manning is going to be presenting that for us today. That's Manning. I got that right, I think, yeah.
All right, I was teasing Gary because Manning's pretty easy to pronounce, but I was like, Manning. Anyway, all right, I'm going to talk about Mother's Day. I was originally going to do a little stage demo with tables and volunteers. I'm like, okay, I need moms and kids. And then I was like, Julie, the moms and kids are probably going to not be here today. They're going to be doing stuff with their other family members and grandmas. And big events with food and not here-ness. So we'll do that later. It'll be a surprise that, I will leave you in suspense. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this wonderful day and how can we honor and love the people in our lives that might pertain to this Mother's Day event. But before we kind of get into that, I want to acknowledge that this is maybe not the most wonderful day for some people. For some people, Mother's Day can be very difficult. Our amazing Julie Samuel Lambert wrote a snippet for a community moment in the past. She did a beautiful job with that, and so I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to lovingly borrow what she already wrote. So I'm going to acknowledge all of those people for whom Mother's Day is difficult. And there's a slide, because you need to look at something other than me. We're going to acknowledge people who have or want to have children, to nurture them, but don't have or want to be bound by the word mother. People who want to become parents, but are impeded by infertility and miscarriage. This is compounded by economic disparities, which keep treatment out of reach for so many. People who were forced into parenthood. Roe v. Wade overturn withstanding, many people who identify as poor, rural, LGBTQ, and or of color have never had full access to the resources they need to have autonomy over their own reproduction. People who have complex mother and child relationships, maybe like our book person, right? And they have lingering past and trauma from that. We want to acknowledge them. People whose mothers have died or whose children have died. We want to acknowledge them. People who know that children they may have and or the children that they currently have are at risk because of the color of their skin. People who nurture others all the time, but do not have children of their very own. And many others. So let's be mindful as we continue with our talk today and our celebration of Mother's Day in America and worldwide to hold space in our communities for those who have such feelings. So, as my slide says, be patient, be gentle, be humble, and be loving. We're going to keep those feelings in our thoughts as we go forward. But we want to remember, many of us do have wonderful, amazing mothers, mother figures, grandmothers, aunts, teachers, neighbors. I have so many wonderful, amazing women in my life. I'm sure many of you guys have even Mr. Moms, single dads, teachers who have been just these amazing forces of nature in your lives that we could all stand here and take turns, pass the mic, tell stories all day long. We could have this amazing, life-wielding Mother's Day stand down if we wanted to. But that's not what we have time for today. We just have a few minutes. I could tell you my own stories of Julie Manning's family story time. I'm not going to do that either, because you would be like, Julie, how many stories do you have? For those of you who are new, I know we have a couple new people I already met. You're like, oh wow, that girl can talk a lot. Yes, I can. That's part of my job. But what I do want to talk to you a little bit about is how can we use the creativity I know each and every single one of you guys have to show the people that we love, whether it is our mothers or our aunts or our grandmas. You can use these tricks for holidays down the road to check the actual parts of our loved ones' hearts and not just be like, okay, holiday done, and actually speak meaning of that love into their hearts. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So this might be a little dated, this one here, but if you guys have ever heard the term love languages, pretty common in our culture. These are 5 of them. This one is by Dr. Chapman. I Googled it, and there's like 12 now. So I'm gonna let you research that on your own and figure out which ones you like the best, okay? These are 5. I read this book first when I was in like my sophomore year of high school. These are the 5 I know the best, okay? So we're gonna go with that. If you like 12, you do you. But I want to encourage you, especially if you haven't already done anything for the mother or mother figure in your life, let's talk about that for a sec. So, 5 love languages: words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. Now, my mother, wonderful, amazing, beautiful woman, Clemencia Golbov. She lives in Reno, Nevada. For those of you who are not great at geology, that is not geography. Thank you. I was like, that's not the right word. It starts with a G. Reno, Nevada is not very close to Kansas. It's far, far away. I cannot physically hug and touch and cuddle my mother on Mother's Day, but I can do things like call her on the telephone. I can send her a gift. I can write her a letter. I can do many, many things to show her my love, but I can't reach through my webcam and hug her. So I'm a little bit limited. But I need to use my creativity every birthday, Mother's Day, whatever, to think about these people have everything they need. Everything they need. What could I possibly do to show them my love? So your challenge every time there's a holiday is to really think, how do I know this person I love? So can I pick on someone? Justin, I'm so sorry. You're sitting in the front row. Give me, maybe not a mom. Who's a woman in your life that you love? Sister, aunt, teacher, someone. Dog, perfect, thank you. All right, your dog. I met your dog, Gracie, right? Beautiful dog. So if Gracie's love language was receiving gifts, right? Dogs love gifts because they can fetch the thing, right? So if we were gonna do how do I show Gracie love? We would think, how do I know Gracie? Okay, and you think through each of these love language. Do I tell Gracie I love her? I'm like, maybe, does she like that? Kinda. And you just kind of go through each one and figure out what works best for this person. Have I had experiences with them? Does this thing seem to ping joy for that person? If it does, yes, good. Maybe proceed with that. If it doesn't, maybe move on to another one. Why do I care? Why does this matter? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe this is not interesting to you. Maybe that person doesn't warrant a lot of effort, and in which case, give it the effort you think it needs. But for those people that you feel like really want to showcase that love, put in that little bit of extra effort. And for me, I am the most forgetful human I know, and I need reminders. I need this little baby life hack up here. So I'm gonna tell you guys about this. So for most of my reminders, things like holidays, Father's Day, birthdays, I put in my calendar, this just happens to be Google Calendar, you can do this in Outlook too. This first one on the top tells me to do it an annual reminder. That means it will happen again next year and the year after that. We know Mother's Day is a weird one because it's not always on a Sunday, so sorry about it. You're gonna get an email on a not Sunday. You're gonna have to just mentally adjust. The other helpful thing is where you said, email me 3 weeks before this date. Google's pretty smart. It'll say, hey, Chuck, guess what? Mother's Day is in 3 weeks from now. Wanted you to know about that. Chuck's gonna go, oh my gosh. Thank you, past self, for reminding me that Mother's Day is in 3 weeks. That gives me plenty of time to go through those love languages and think, what in the world am I going to get for my loved one that already has everything that they need? Do I need to sit down and write them a handwritten letter? Am I gonna plan a visit? Am I going to buy a dog toy for their dog I hate? I don't know. We will think about it. But this gives you plenty of warning to send a card, buy a gift, plan a trip, whatever you might need. So, life hack for that. Otherwise, if you guys are running a little short on time, you can always make a call, send a text and say, hey, happy Mother's Day. Love you so much. I would like to plan a time we could do a blank together. I know I've been promising you we're gonna clean out your basement. I don't want to. We're gonna do it anyway. When can I come over? Sorry. And I'm sure your person will be overjoyed because you're doing the thing that they want to do that you don't want to do and you're doing it anyway. And that's all I got. Gary, it's all back to you.
All right, that was good. A good reminder. I tell you what, the older I get, the more I realize a lot of things about my mother I took for granted, and I can't go back and fix that right now. But if you still have your mother alive, keep that in mind. All right, that brings us to our coffee break, and I guess we've resolved it will be 20-minute coffee breaks. Unlike the last time I emceed when I proposed it, might want to cut back. So 20 minutes, we'll see you. And sit down. Come on, everybody. Come on back. All right. Do what now? Oh. Okay. All right. We are going to get some more music from Cucharada. Again, it's Sean and Guy. Please come forward. Thank you. Very good, very good. We'll be hearing again, closing with some music today also, so they'll be back for some more. All right. As we prepare to introduce our speaker, let's just remember that this is designed to generate conversation and engage our powers of reason, but it's not a forum to start debate, so we're not going to try to start a fight here. The following presentation has been prepared by our speaker and not by KC Oasis. Please respect the views of our speaker, and if you have any questions, a Q&A portion will follow. All right, Lewis Diuguid, the assault that diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts face in government, corporate, education, faith, and community circles, and where that could lead. Lewis is the chair of the Political Action Committee for the National Association for Multicultural Education. He worked as a journalist for more than 39 years, and in fact, I see some new faces here that you haven't seen before. So you've attracted some participation here. That's good. Worked for Kansas City Star. He's a graduate of the MU School of Journalism. He is the author of multiple books and is a founding member of the Kansas City Association of Black Journalists. He's the winner of many awards, including the 2000 Missouri Honor Medal for Distinguished Service in Journalism. So with that, Lewis, why don't you come forward.
Well, thank you for having me as your speaker today, and for those who are moms, happy Mother's Day. It's a very touching time for all of us. And what I want to leave you with in the short time that we have together, and let's make sure that I don't run over, is diversity is important. For our country, I think we have a very diverse population and it's growing. And for us as individuals taking a very selfish attitude, we want everyone to be working at their best, at their capacity, at their potential, so that we can get the most out of everyone rather than some of the stuff that's going on now. Like that. Donald Trump, when he was president, one of his last acts was to issue executive orders against diversity and against diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and critical race theory. Fortunately, Joe Biden reversed that. However, last year we had the Supreme Court ruling that essentially eliminated the use of affirmative action in college admissions, and that's simply increased, as you can see, with a lot of different states outlawing it. I was presenting in Texas, in Houston, just this month, and they are really up against the wall there. But it's not just in education and in government, but this is now spreading to industry, and it's affecting the way that industries are operating and not being inclusive and not hiring people of color the way that they should. And I must add, particularly on Mother's Day, that women have been, white women in particular, have been the biggest beneficiaries of DEI programs. The business community, as I said earlier, are up against the wall, and there is a tremendous backlash. George Floyd opened things up, and his unfortunate murder by police in Minneapolis, but they've since closed down radically, and that's not good. Now, we often think of diversity programs as being just a nice thing, and it's neat for people to be welcoming of others, and it is. But there's a cost that's associated with the loss of DEI programs. In Missouri, it's $2.6 billion and 23,800 jobs. In Kansas, it's $898 million and 8,462 jobs by the year 2030. And again, it goes to the productivity that we would want individuals to have if they were engaged in diversity efforts and if businesses were able to harness all of this talent, and they're not. In his book, Lies My Teacher Told Me, James Loewen notes that what we're seeing occur now is what had occurred in the 19th century. After the Civil War, and the enactment of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, and then reconstructions and the freedmen's bureaus, they were made to help formerly enslaved people. But then by the 1890s, 1890s, the energy had gone out of it, and people were like, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore. And so they stopped. And that's what we're seeing now is there had been a great amount of energy put into diversity efforts during the civil rights movement and afterward, and now people are just not wanting to be involved in it. Fear is a motivator. Demographic changes also are affecting that, and we'll see those in some slides coming up. Politics in the presidential election. Trump has found that it benefits him to really excite the racist core and white supremacist core in this country. And then we have the continuing disparity of wealth. Climate change is a problem, increasing migration, and then there's just the balkanization of the population. So we're in this perfect storm. But then you have to, in looking at books like Debunking the Middle Class Myth, Why Diverse Schools Are Good for All Kids, there is a benefit to people living in diverse communities, going to diverse schools, and not having that with the severe segregation that we have now. It's setting kids up for failure because they won't know how to act and communicate with others. And segregation is becoming more of a problem now than it was when a lot of us in this room were kids. 77% of black students in this country in 1968 attended majority non-white schools. And it's worse now at 81% and getting even worse. Now, what we're losing, again, is that opportunity for kids to engage people who are different, to get out of their comfort zone, to make friends across different ethnicities and races, and to become aware of what's going on in the world, so that when they get into the work life, they've already had that in their experiences. Administrators in schools need to also promote diversity, but that's not happening. This quote, I think, helps to frame it. Students learn more and think deeper in more complex ways in a diverse educational environment. And we'll get into what that looks like a little bit later. Now, again, my belief is that you can only be as good as a member of our society as the depth and breadth of your experiences as a human being. And that means rubbing shoulders with people who are different from you, getting to know them, picking up their ways, and becoming very comfortable with it. I love this cartoon. We go through life differently and come out of it differently. Diversity, inclusion, equity, accessibility, and belonging enhances your questioning, understanding, communications, empathy, problem identifying, and problem-solving abilities. And it's all about free speech and the freedom to assemble and the freedom to engage with people who are different. We need to get into these uncharted areas because it makes us better, it makes our society better. In journalism, I always viewed conversations with people as a currency. It allowed me to be able to, yes, I still pack, put things in my notebook, and then take it back, write it, and it becomes part of the intellectual property of the newspaper, and what helped propel my career. This is from the Equal Justice Initiative, which is based in Montgomery, Alabama, and it talks about how there has been a very structured, concerted effort to keep us apart, to keep us at odds with each other. I love this quote by Colin Powell about lies, and we're experiencing this, we're living it daily now. This is some of the data that the Census Bureau put together on the US population in 1980. And you can see the population then was more than 100 million short of what it is today. And 79.5% of the population consisted of white people, 21.93 people of color. But our demographics is changing so fast that 42% of the total now consists of people of color, and we have majority-minority states, including Texas, California, New Mexico, Hawaii, and soon-to-be Florida. And Wyandotte County, which happens to be the poorest in this metro area, also is a majority-minority county. This is what I had hoped would be some opportunities to engage with you. The golden rule versus the platinum rule. We always think of the golden rule as being best, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but it's flawed because it assumes that we're the same, and we are not. And so in diversity circles, we need to use the platinum rule, which is do unto others as they would prefer you to do unto them, which means you have to have a conversation. You have to get to know the other individual. They have to get to know you so that there can be this exchange of what matters to you both. I add Douglas MacArthur here because in a diversity session that I had led at the Kansas City Star, one guy who was a reporter said that he only takes down in his notebook what he himself would have said, which doesn't sound like a good reporter, but it actually made sense because he was saying that everything that mattered to him up to that point in his life became part of his resume of what should matter in his stories. And so from that experience, it then caused him to write down what he thought was important for his stories. And another guy who was working at the newspaper at the time said, well, it made sense to him then that a friend of his said that when he interviewed MacArthur after Truman kicked him out of the Pacific Theater, it was as if he were having a conversation with himself, and General MacArthur just happened to be in the room. And you want to get that close to people so that it really resonates with you. I have Bill Clark's service. He had been the head of the Urban League, and he died, and I went to represent the newspaper, and there was a reporter there who was doing the story, and I could see that the reporter was going to have trouble when he got back to do his story because he only took down comments from people who were white when they were speaking, and not the people who were black, not the people who were Native American, not the people who were Latinos. And that's because we've been taught to value certain people as speakers over others all of our lives. And so fortunately, when we got back to the office, he asked me for input, and again, I'm always packing, so we were able to get his story to look good and be fully representative. This issue of double consciousness is from W.E.B. Du Bois' book, The Souls of Black Folks. He essentially says that we as African Americans possess a double consciousness. We look at things both as Americans, but we also look at things as Africans in America. And he postulates that that's kind of a confusing thing, but I see it as a empowering thing, because we can get more out of a subject, and because we're looking at it in two different perspectives. And so it gives us a greater ability to see things, to problem identify and problem solve. But you have to understand that Latinos possess a double consciousness, though different. Asian Americans possess a double consciousness, again, different. Women possess a double consciousness, and different. And so all of these groups possess a double consciousness that we as individuals need to become aware of, learn from, adopt it in ourselves so that we can grow as individuals. Third culture kids, immigrants are often viewed as third culture kids because they take the culture of their primary country and the culture of their new country, blend it, and they come up with a third culture, which enables them to see things differently and to communicate differently. President Obama was a third culture kid because of the time he spent in Asia as a kid and came back to this country and again put that to work to become the first black president. Diversity has to work with two hands and 2 feet. On the one hand, it is about us being the same and how we can find similarities there. But on the other hand, it's about our difference. And I think that the strength is in our difference. The two legs of diversity is it has to walk with us in our workplace and in our community, but then it has to go with us onto the job site and into places where we would go and carry our diversity with us and share it with others. There is opportunity through diversity, and it helps us communicate with a changing population. This is a great book if you've not read it, and my significant other, who is literally blind, she suggested it to me, but it helps us to understand that we all have built-in biases, we all have blind spots, and we need to work on identifying it and then working around it. John McKinsey established a recovering racist network in this country, and he essentially says that we are by nature racist because we've been brought up in the United States. And racism is like alcoholism, it's like a drug addiction. We are always recovering, never cured. Implicit bias is another thing, and that comes from that, you find it in that book, The Blind Spot. We have to divest ourselves of these isms and homophobia and white privilege to be able to get to know and work with people who are different from ourselves. Newspapers and the media make existential victims of us constantly. They provide us with a certain amount of information that is never enough to be able to pull together all of the strings to get to know and to be curious enough to go out and be with other people. So when you have stories that pick up the biases of what's in our community rather than give you the truth, they are making us existential victims, and the isms are able to find a warm, fuzzy place to live. I'm not going to go into this part, but the media are broken into 5 media functions. You can see that the population is now 335 million people. The black population has risen to 13.6%. By 2045, it'll be about the same. The Latino population has risen to 19.1%. It'll be 24.6% by 2045. And the Asian American population is 6.3% now, but 7.8% by 2045. This is what's scaring the bejeebas out of the folks who are wanting to embrace Trump and do away with DEI programs. But they should be running toward the DEI programs because we want people to be more engaged. In my first book, A Teacher's Cry, I quote a woman who had pushed for higher standards in education across the country. Right now we have a hodgepodge that is worthless. And she said that when she was lobbying in Washington, D.C., that a senator, she wouldn't tell me who, told her, well, if we push for higher standards and everyone's living up to their potential, then who's going to mow my lawn? Who's going to take care of my kids? Who's going to clean my house? So the system of education is functioning just fine, though in a very broken state for a lot of people. The media aim at a mass audience or a target audience, and that's this homogeneous center that consists of people who are white mostly. And these spheres outside consist of people of color, people in the margins, people who don't fit. And there's a wholesomeness in the center and not being like these folks that is created because of it. But it helps you to understand the Trumpers and why they think he's so good. Walter Lippmann came up with this definition of stereotypes. They are the subtlest, most pervasive influences, those which create and maintain the repertoire of stereotypes. We are told about the world before we see it. We imagine most things before we experience them. And those preconceptions, unless education has made us acutely aware, govern deeply the whole process of perception. In my book, Discovering the Real America, I include Roger and Hammerstein's You've Got to Be Carefully Taught, because that's what we've been, is carefully taught to believe the biases. I love this quote from Winston Churchill. Again, the lies dominate. And I'd said earlier that women are some of the biggest beneficiaries of DEI programs, and yet women have been discriminated in most profound ways. This book, White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism, is exceptional. And then she postulates that this is why we have problems with people of color in this country. And then this data comes from her book also. And it shows how the dominant characters in all of these categories are people who are white, and they give us the impression of themselves, but a terrible, awful impression of people of color. I love this quote by Mary Frances Berry in her book, The Pig Farmer's Daughter, whose story counts and legal decisions rest heavily on who controls political and economic power in a process that is circular and progressive. The stories of the powerful are the only ones that count, and counting further enhances the power of the tellers in the economic and political arenas. The exclusion of their stories reflects the historical silencing of African Americans. And you can include in that Native Americans, Asian Americans, Latinos, because all of these different groups have been forced into this dark zone. But as happens with people, there is a will to survive in a way. Aspirational capital exists, where people share what they aspire to. Navigational capital exists, where they share ways to get around the system. Social capital exists, where new ideas come up. Linguistic capital, language that is about survival. Familial capital and family that helps people come above it all. And resistant capital, and that's ways in which we resist the way things are. Our stories matter, and that's the bottom line, but we need to get to know more people's stories. There is a way that they have overcome, and that helps us as individuals learn to build community in the margins, to challenge the perceived wisdom, to nurture community and facilitate transformation. If you haven't read Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, I highly recommend it. And then there's where we are. Jane Elliott, who did A Class Divided, if you'd ever like to see that film, I have it. But she says if you want to raise a racist, sexist, homophobic, elitist, classist, violent kid, put that kid in front of a TV set when it's just able to sit up and turn it on, and it's guaranteed. Of course, now it's all of these other screens. Daniel Wildcat, I have in my book, Discovering the Real America, and he says we're still trying to discover the real America. And he's so true in that statement still. This is at the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, and it essentially says that we need to step out of where we've been, get into places that are uncomfortable, dodge a few cars perhaps, figuratively, but get to know people in ways that they've not had people come up to them in the past. In my book, Discovering the Real America, I come up with 3 diversity formulas. I've since added a 4th. But talent is everywhere. We need to become the diversity multipliers to help people toward productivity. Teachers are diversity multipliers, helping students to productivity. Talking is important because if we're talking to people who are diversity multipliers, then we build social capital or new ideas. And that also spurs reciprocity. My mother, when I was a kid, and we'd go begging to her for things, it's appropriate to talk about this on Mother's Day, we'd say, can we have, and she's like, hold out your hand, boy. And so I said, hold them both out. And she'd say, and we'd look up at her very longingly, and she said, I want you to wish in one hand and crap in the other, and you tell me which one fills up the fastest. So hope and prayer are good, they're nice, but you need to really incorporate other people to achieve change. And then this last formula, the excluded times diversity equal belonging, and that's what we should strive for. Thank you.
Anybody have a question?
Oh,
Got a few back here.
Goodness.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Sarah, former coworker.
Thank you, Lewis. I've noticed recently that some of the major criticisms of DEI are actually coming from the left more and more. And they seem to be concerned about identity politics and the dividing of society into oppressor versus oppressed. And their concern is that these DEI programs are assigning us all into our little individual groups and creating more divisiveness and more segregation rather than taking a look at us as individuals and our strengths and weaknesses. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, and it comes right out of Havana in Cuba. My partner, who passed away in 2021 of breast cancer after a 5.5-year fight, she had been the executive director of the National Association for Multicultural Education, and she and I led 6 groups of educators to Cuba to learn what that country was like, especially before it changed, and unfortunately it hasn't changed very much, thank you, Donald Trump. But while we were there, the Cubans were very much against having what they called hyphenated others. They wanted everyone to look at their people as being Cubans only, yet they had a population that was black, brought in as slaves the same as here. They had a population that was Asian, brought in to build the railroads, same as here. And there is a beautiful history associated with all of these different cultures. And I think that when we decide that we don't want to have hyphenated people, as was the case back at the turn of the last century during World War I, when people were against hyphenations, Irish American, Italian Americans were the standouts, then what they're saying is we want everyone to be part of this homogeneous, molded, sculpted middle America, and we aren't. We just aren't. And what's lost is the beauty of what we bring to the table that's so very different, with different talents, different strengths, different behaviors, as I pointed out up here. Now, there is value in us not running away from each other, us living close to each other, but I think there's just as equal amount of value as respecting the difference. Yes, sir.
Could you talk more about, you mentioned the financial losses that could follow from the loss of these diversity programs. Could you talk more about that?
Sure. That was from a study that I was able to pull together for this presentation. But there are many that are out there that show that there is a dollar value assigned to diversity, and having people in your whole network that really help you to be better. Companies that have come out with new products or new advertising have made horrible mistakes in assuming that we're all the same, that everyone gets it as we do, and they've come out with products that the Nova is one that stands out, which in Spanish is novas, or it doesn't go. Would you buy a car that doesn't go? But there have been just hundreds of other examples of screw-ups that have occurred because people of color haven't been in the room when these things were decided. And I think that the value of having diversity is that, number one, you don't make the mistakes, and number two, you get the benefit of the finances that come from new products and services. Other questions? Yes, sir.
You've heard of Project 2025 and the Seven Mountain Theory, have you?
I have not.
Okay, as I understand it, the Seven Mountain is where the Christians try and take control of the culture through media and other things, and Project 2025 is the idea of making as I understand it, the idea of an authoritarian government after Trump is reelected. Could anti-DEI efforts come from those?
My hope is that people who are Trumpers will come to their senses before the election, and when they go into the booth and nobody's watching, they will not vote for him. So that's my hope. Yet as a realist, I know that we're skating on thin ice, and anything can happen with an election. We saw that in 2016 when we thought certainly Hillary Clinton would win. And then, good God, are we really going to have to do 4 years with this piece of... My hope is that we won't have to do that again.
One last question. Here we go.
Thank you for being here. I was a devoted reader of yours when you wrote for the Kansas City Star. And,
thank you. You helped to keep me employed. That was no easy feat.
Yeah, I miss the days when I could go into a store and buy the newspaper for $1 or less. Even.
Right.
DEI, before hearing you speak, I worked all at the public schools, and I always thought DEI was something where they called all the certified teachers in to have a conference or a seminar or training, and then they would tell that group of employees what they needed to do or think or how they needed to engage. What else So when we think about DEI, what other programs or what other teachings or trainings would an individual be able to receive?
There is a lot of DEI nonsense that's out there where people have been paid to be consultants and they go in and do what I call a seagull approach. They swoop in, poop, and then leave and take money in the process. But if it's done right, and we tried to do that at the Star when they were really big on this effort in 1993. If it's done right, it's not given an office, it's not given a program, there is no one book that is the Bible, but it is just like life. You're constantly learning, you're constantly picking up new material, sharing it, and that's books and bringing in speakers and just impressing your workplace on the fact that we want to be lifelong learners. And part of being a lifelong learner, particularly in this country where racism and white supremacy have been dominant, is to counter those with different voices, different attitudes that bring people together, that increase productivity, that increase the likelihood that you'll make friends that you never thought you'd make. And it's, again, not about one person owning it, but everyone owning a piece of it and then bringing the pieces together. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. All right. Let's get the glasses on. Well, there's a slide we didn't get to, I guess. Very well. Thank you for adhering to the deal. All right. While our musicians come up for one last song, we wanted to remind everyone that Kansas City Oasis is a 501c3 nonprofit run solely on donations and volunteers. If you like the speaker and the music today, please consider donating through kcoasis.org/donate or by Venmo. Recurring monthly donations are the most helpful for future planning. So, all right. And now some more music from Cucharada.
Thanks so much for having us today. It's been a beautiful spring week. Wonderful to have the windows open and bring the fresh air in, and we're honored that you would let us darken your doorstep. I'd be remiss not to share my great idea, by the way, since a can of worms of politics was opened. I feel like I have some insight that I stumbled upon too recently, and that, it's very polarized nowadays. And people can't agree on much. As a matter of fact, one of the few things they can seem to agree on is they can't believe that they got the same options come this November for the elections. But I've got good news. It's sort of finding a silver lining in all this. Nobody has to get new bumper stickers. Of course, this is bad news for the bumper sticker company, but anyways, we're going to do something tango adjacent and go to Brazil and play something by the great Aitra Villalobos, the opening movement to his Baquianas Brasileiros number 5.
All right. What, refresh my memory, cucharada translates to what again?
Spoonful. Like cuchara is a spoon,
Cuch-
and a spoonful.
Gotcha.
Cucharada. So we try to play stuff from big orchestras and just make a spoonful of arrangement. By the way, we do have a 5-piece band that plays dances. There's a tango dance scene. On Fridays in a place in Shawnee, the Viva Dance Studio, they have, for people that are looking to, it's just walking. It's, people are very open-minded. They're not going to judge you if you miss a step. And then occasionally play dances with a bassist and a violinist and a singer. So.
Okay. And any performing anywhere we need to know about anytime soon? What's your next gig?
We've been having like a monthly thing at a restaurant in Lawrence. That's where I live.
In Lawrence?
Yeah,
Okay.
Genovese Italian restaurant down on
Genovese,
Mass Street.
okay.
You all know about Mass Street. I mean, that's the place to
Yeah,
be.
yeah. Okay. Well, great. All right. All right. Now you can join us for lunch after Oasis in the Crown Center food court. Choose your lunch at one of many restaurants, and we will push several tables together and continue the conversation. And we did call. They are open today, Mother's Day. So we've prepared for that. So again, to remind you, we're a volunteer, entirely run organization. No one's paid to do anything for Oasis. So if you could lend a hand in doing a little bit of the tidying up we like to do at the end, we would really, really appreciate it. We can use all the help we can get. Let's see here. Next week, our featured speaker is going to be Deanne Gregory on LED lighting and the good and the bad and the ugly. I think that's going to be interesting. And I think she's also going to be talking about light pollution and how that really impacts it. The musician will be Jansen Wooten. So once again, thank you for coming out, and hope to see you next week. All right.